I wanted, obviously, it to depict that when you're caring for someone, it's almost like you're holding space for them. So if you would imagine that they're ill and they're in a difficult place and they need this like protection around them, right? And so for me, that to me is your love, your embrace, your hug, your that's why Dom is kind of a little dark and on the cover, because it's like the person's fading away almost, but you're at the same time holding space for them. And to hold space for them, you gotta hold them, right? And we have ice tones in there, going into blue, because it's like it's tranquil, but at the same time icy. Is what I wanted to connote. Like, it's an icy, hard, difficult, cold place, but at the same time it's warm, which is why you have the gold as well in it, right? So it's kind of both at the same time. And it's really about holding space, for the person, because they can't do it for themselves at that point, right?
Has this experience changed your view about death?
Yes, it has. Because when we think of death, we think of it as this difficult thing, right? That nobody wants to do. I mean, let's face it, nobody wants to die. But I think that as with every moment in life, it's a journey, right? Death becomes a part of the journey, right? And for me, I think it kind of almost sweetens life a little bit more, right? Because it allows you to be able to enjoy those moments, to say I love you every day, to really mean it, to make moments. A friend of mine is stuck with me, he says make moments every day. Like literally, make moments every day, right? And so for me, death doesn't become this scary thing that, we will all hate it, I'm sure, when we get there, I don't know. But the bottom line is, it sweetens life, and it makes it so that you're a fool if you don't make sure that you make moments every day. And I'm really serious about that at this point. My kids know, they're probably like, this woman is crazy. But when I go to bed at night, I sleep really well. I dream very little because I'm super tired. And it's because I tried to make some memory that day. Right? And I'm on them about it. We say I love you to each other every day before we leave the house. In fact, several times a day. They'll say I love you, or they're going to play a basketball game, I love you. And so, no, death doesn't scare me as much anymore. The other reason is because it's about building a legacy, right? And it's about, what did we leave here? What mark did we leave? And if you're focused on leaving that mark, I always think to myself, okay, what is this person going to say at my funeral? I think about that all the time. And I say to myself, I want to impact them in such a way that at my funeral, they're going to have something nice to say.
Yeah.
I really think about that. Like I was talking to a kid this morning who's going through depression in my church, and I mentor a lot of young people, and so I talk to them all the time. So we're talking on the phone, and I'm thinking to myself, I want to make sure that, God forbid I pass away and he's around, I want him to stand up and say to my kids or to my family or to whomever that Mrs. Fosu said this to me that mattered and helped me through my depression that day. And so I make a point of calling him and having those conversations. Plenty other things I can do.
Yeah.
But that's a make moment.
Yeah, and I don't think you have to worry about that. I think a lot of people are going to say a lot of wonderful things about you. I do.
Praise God.
Yeah, I do.
Primarily, I hope to give release for people to say, wow, okay, because when you're taking care of somebody, you're so focused on the person, you kind of don't see the rest of the world for quite a while.
Yes.
And so that's primary, is giving that emotional release. I started a foundation called Ruth and Isaac. Ruth from Ruth in the Bible, who took care of Naomi, and Isaac, who is the guy who cared me for Dom. And that is meant to not just release, but there are 3 R's I say. The second is reclaim, which is reclaim some sense of normalcy when you start to caregive. and then kind of rejuvenate, which is come up with a plan for what you're going to actually do as you caregive to get that help. Because I'm hoping that people can really say, yes, I'm a caregiver. Yes, that's difficult. Yes, I acknowledge it. Yes, I need help. And then I want to be able to offer that help to them by way of cleaning services. You know, I say if you want to go to a movie or we want to give you free movie tickets, how good is a movie ticket to me when I'm caregiving for somebody if I don't have a replacement caregiver? So I want to be able to give a movie ticket and a replacement caregiver so you can actually go to the movies, right? And so think about things that are really relevant to caregivers and be able to help them with that and have people, you know, kind of match people with donations directly to support caregivers. And then finally, I get two other things. One is I want to leave a legacy for my sons. I want them to know what their mom and dad love was like, right? Because there are a lot of it that they missed out on, and they were young when this part was going on. And they kind of missed out on the beginning because they weren't really there. So that's the other thing. And finally, just, you know, it's my testimony.
Yes.
I'm a Christian woman. I claim that, and it's my testimony about how God worked in the most difficult of times in our lives in so many different ways. And I want people to be able to see God move more when they read my book, because I try to make sure that came out. And I wanted you to be able to see that God moves when you don't think He's moving, but you got to be tuned into that. And if you're not tuned into it, you're probably doing a little bit more work than you need to. Many times, you know, sometimes the kids will walk in, and now I give myself more permission to cry in front of them. Because before I wouldn't, trying to be strong. But I realized that in doing that, I made them not want to cry because they were trying to be strong and acting like me. So now I've given myself permission. Where Reese came in the other day, I think I wrote it was around Christmas time. I sent a little thing online and said, hey, you know, Reese came in and I was on the floor crying. And I just confessed why I was crying, because normally I'd probably made up some excuse or whatever. So yeah.
I think that's great. And I think, you know, people need to see that there's strength in our surrender. There's strength in what we perceive as our weakness. It really is about us being strong.
Exactly.
Yeah. And absolutely great that your sons.
Yeah.
So proud of you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Did you do any kind of therapy? I did not do your typical therapy. What happened is, when I took them to a place called Good Grief in Norristown, which is amazing for kids for therapy who are grieving, because they do different age groups and they kind of section them off, and they do different types of therapy. For me, I started that, but I didn't like it. The reason I didn't like it is because I guess my spirit is just one that I'm like half full, and I felt like a lot of people in the class were half empty, and it didn't work for me. Now, for some people, I'm not judging it. That's just me. So what I decided was I really want to grieve in the Christian context. And there was nothing like that. So talked to my pastor. He said, well, why don't you start a group at church? So we started a group at church. That group is now, I guess, 3, maybe 4 years old. And so we do it that way, which is we have therapists come in and meet with us. And, you know, we walk through the stages of grief. We kind of benchmark where we are. But the difference is that we study scripture about grieving, you know, and about loss in the scripture and what the scripture says about the process of grieving. And so that's kind of helped me to be able to release, but at the same time understand what God's perspective on it is and what God would expect me to do in that situation. So that's, now we have our bereavement group at church, and apparently there aren't that many of them out there where you can go and have that in the Christian context, but that's what I wanted.
How do you now make sure you give yourself the nourishment and the replenishment that you need in order to do what you need to do for your family?
2013 through now has just been roller coaster, right? Dom got sick, he passed away, I was in MBA school, all over the world doing that. Came back, had written the book, had no idea what I was getting into when I actually was saying, let's publish this book. Because I didn't. Like, I wasn't one of those people who researched everything that had to do with publishing a book. I kind of did it step by step. And so once I got into, okay, the book is actually published, now you got to market it, that's even more. I was like, oh my God. You know, when the opportunity presented itself for me to step back from corporate for a minute, I took it. And I said, you know what? I'm just gonna let God drive. And in that time, what I'm gonna do is focus on one, getting closer to Him in a different sort of way. Like finding out what my driving scriptures are, for instance, and really trying to meditate on that. And then I said, I'm just gonna do stuff that I want to do, like simple stuff. No more fake nails because they cost too much money. I'd rather do something else with my money, right? And so I've said, listen, I'm gonna now step back for a moment and just do stuff I want to do. So if I want to wake up one day and go to the movie, I'm gonna go to the movie. If I want to lay on the couch for 2 days in my pajamas, I'll take them to school, come back, put my pajamas on, and I'm just gonna give it a moment. And whatever is gonna be there, I pray it will still be there. And if it ain't, God's gonna have something else. And so I'm trying to be very purposeful right now by doing that. The other day, Samantha knows, I went to the spa for, what was it, 3 days? 3 days.
Wow,
I didn't fly anywhere. I went local, but I went to Sojo Spa. I drove, I was there all day. I came home. I went back the next morning. I came home. And then I went to my Korean spa the third day. She was like, you going again? Right? And so I did that, you know. And so now, you know, I'm planning our family vacation. I'm thinking about I'm a boater, so I like to get out boating. So, you know, in the summer we'll do that. But I'm just doing basic stuff. For me, it's self-care because I always do a lot of crazy stuff.